Buenas tardes and welcome to this week's virtual Charla. And it's a special one as we welcome Hispanic Heritage Month. Big, huge thanks to AARP and the amazing Yvette Peña for hosting this Afro-Latinx Charla and creating a space where the Charla oradores and oradoras will be sharing their Afro-Latinx perspectives on racial justice, as well as having to deal with racism with our own community, which is a huge issue for me and our organization. They will also provide me and everyone participating on the Charla with guidance and proactive approaches to identifying solutions to racial issues that aren't new, but have risen to the top of America's consciousness at last. Oh yeah, we're going deep today. So as always, we will feature our community in the Charla as our speakers, but we have a special guest today, thanks to AARP, Amara La Negra. She performed at the Hispanic Heritage Awards a couple of years ago at the Kennedy Center and on PBS. Anyone who saw her that night know that she is pure fire, fuego. You can't even get near her, it's such fire. But she's not only fire on the screen or on the stage or in our community, she's also fire on this Charla, and we're looking forward to hearing what she has to say. We also have other friends joining us, Cesar, Francia, Maria Salmeron, Dayana, Blanco, Sid Wilson, and Yadira, Santana-Dowling. So let's get ready to listen, to learn, and to better serve our Afro-Latinx community. Our Charlas provide a space to share their personal experiences, ideas, and actions through compelling, inspiring 5-minute presentations. As we like to say, listen up, speak up, and connect. You can use the hashtag Community Charlas. Over the past few months, AARP has hosted special series of charlas focused on salud, dinero, y amor. Let me just say thank you to AARP. You push us to create these spaces to have these important conversations for our community and with our community. So let me get started. Your moderator today is our friend, Yvette Peña, who is the Vice President of Multicultural Leadership, Hispanic/Latino Audience Strategy at AARP. Yvette is an accomplished award-winning marketer and community advocate with over 20 years of experience specializing in multicultural initiatives. She was named Vice President for Latino Audience Strategies at AARP in 2016, and she has led strategic development of AARP's brand campaigns targeting the Spanish-dominant and bilingual segments, resulting in significant brand awareness increases, and that's key there. This is why we need representation at AARP, on stage, in the music industry, on Wall Street, everywhere else, is so we can have this impact, because people like our friend Yvette understand their responsibility within these large institutions. Yvette also serves as the national voice for AARP's thought leadership on the Latino community through partnerships with multicultural organizations like ours to drive AARP's social impact agenda. She's a lifelong advocate for ethnic community and takes pride in giving back and providing opportunities to develop communities in meaningful ways. In 2018, Yvette was named the Board of Directors of the Friends of the National Museum of the American Latino. Congratulations on the progress in that space. And we are big partners of the museum as well, and Estuardo, and the great work that you and Danny and Estuardo are doing. Yvette is a native New Yorker with proud Dominican roots. And that's all impressive bio stuff. I just want to finish her introduction as saying Yvette is also one of the most gracious, positive spirits that we are blessed to have in our community, a true leader that understands how to make an impact. So it's a pleasure to have you moderate today's Charla. Yvette Peña, take it away.
Gracias, mi querido amigo Tony, for that wonderful introduction. I am so humbled. Soy Yvette Peña, a first-generation US-born Afro-Latina, daughter of immigrants from the Dominican Republic, whose ancestors journeyed through Africa, Spain, Portugal, Cuba, and Puerto Rico to Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic. I am beyond honored to moderate this charla, focused on the different Afro-Latino, Afro-Latina perspectives on racial injustice and the proactive approach to identify solutions. It is so important to always work together with diverse minds towards impactful strategies when it comes to issues like systemic racism, prejudice, and racial injustice. As Tony mentioned, today we will learn about our speakers' experiences and their personal approach to how they identify solutions within their communities. So what does it mean to be Afro-Latina, Afro-Latino? Well, if you look for the definitions, Afro-Latin American or Black Latin American refers to Latino Hispanic immigrants of significant or mainly African ancestry. Many of us identify as our racial background, right? And Afro-Latinos are one of those Latino identity groups. We're characterized by our diverse views of racial identity, reflecting the complex and varied nature of race and identity among Latinos. According to the Pew Research Center, 1/4 of all US Latinos self-identify as Afro-Latino, Afro-Caribbean, or of African roots in Latin America. For many of us, like me, we just need to look in the mirror or be reminded of who we are as we enjoy our música, our food, nuestras costumbres, or the microaggressions that we face, sometimes within our own families, with phrases such as, hay que adelantar la raza, and in our society, who never let us forget who we are. Questioning my identity started as young as opening up a box of crayons and trying to figure out the right color to represent the color of my skin when I drew pictures of myself and my family. And even way back in grammar school, it made me question who I really was. How was I to identify on these forums and surveys as a little kid? Was I Black? Was I really other? There weren't many options to choose from because I spoke Spanish, I was told I was not Black, I have an accent, and depending on which groups of Latinos I was with, I was negrita or morenita, and that was quite a lot for a young girl to process when it came to identity. These experiences always kept me aware of who I was and prepared me for all the racism and the microaggressions, the social injustice that I would face and at times still face in my adult life because of the color of my skin, the texture of my hair, and my accent. My experience and the experience of many other Afro-Latinos, the racial injustice, the prejudice, the profiling is very similar to what our Black brothers and sisters face. We see it voiced through the Black Lives Matter movement. This discussion will hopefully offer you diverse perspectives on proactive approaches to identify solutions. There has to be una luz at the end of the tunnel for all of us, because juntos, in unity, we can find solutions to make this world a better place, not only for us, but for our loved ones. As a reminder, as Tony mentioned, this Love Charla is a platform to connect our community from all over the country. Therefore, we're striving to create a safe and open environment for our speakers and guests. We ask that everyone please be respectful of everyone's time and differing opinions. After these back-to-back presentations, we will have a Q&A session at the end of the charla. So please make sure that you're submitting your questions through the Q&A window. And now, to kick us off, is our first speaker, Amara La Negra. Amara is an international entertainer, singer, songwriter, actress, model, and esteemed philanthropist, and a role model for many of us. Though born in Miami, Florida, Amara is of Dominican and Italian descent. Her mother, an immigrant who arrived to the United States via the Mexican border, supported Amara's career by any means necessary. After gaining international exposure in Sábado Gigante's Miss Chiquita contest, she continued to soar, being featured on a number of big brand commercials, eventually breaking through the music industry. Her performances include the stage presence with Gloria Estefan, Oscar de León, Johnny Ventura, Los Hermanos Rosario, Tito Puente, Tito Nieves, Mili Quesada, and I'm sure many others. Her latest single, Ándale, is Ándale, and she will be featured in HBO's Latinx documentary, Habla Now, coming out Friday, September 18, which is today, which also focuses on issues that matter to Latino communities. Amara La Negra's stage name is unapologetically celebrating her Blackness. a form of defiance in the region of Latin America, where some countries view the word negra as a pejorative. Amara is now on the way which she perceived, and is always ready to speak up for her own rights and that of Afro-Latinas. Please help me and our distinguished speakers in welcoming our talented amiga, Amara la Negra.
Hi guys! Hueva, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué me cuentas? How you feeling? How's life? Oh, well, okay. Well, with that being said, te estaba saludando, but I guess we had the situation going on. But regardless, first of all, I want to thank every single one of you guys for being part of this amazing panel. I am honored every single time that I have the possibilities of talking to other Afro-Latinos, talking to anybody that may want to know about our culture, that may want to know about our background, our history, even though that we currently have Google, if you still have any questions, or feel free to YouTube something, okay? Because a lot of us, we tired of having to explain the same thing over and over again. But if you want to know, I'm always willing to educate, and I'm always willing to be here. So like you said before, my name is Amara la Negra, born and raised here in Miami. I started in the entertainment industry when I was very, very young. I started as a child star at 4 years old. And basically at that point in my life, I started working in one of the biggest networks, Sábado Gigante with Don Francisco, was a very well-known show for the Latin community, in which I was the only Black girl and during the 50, 60 years that Sábado Gigante was on air every single Saturday. I always say that I felt like a bug in a cup of milk. I always stood out. It was like, oh, there goes that Black girl. They would put me in the middle. They would put me in the back. They never knew where to put me based off the color of my skin, not my talent, because it would make the choreography look off center or look weird. And it wasn't until about, I remember my one of the first experiences that I recall that really made me realize that I was somewhat different from everybody else was the fact that when I was about 6 years old and I was at the network, I was at the hair station, and the hairstylist said, don't judge me now with my wig. Let me readjust. Don't judge me now with this wig now, okay? I got my afro and I'm proud of it. It's braided down in here right now, but I'm about to let it out and be free. But back then, the hairstylist told my mom, you have to do something with her hair because her hair is unmanageable and we don't have time for this. And it wasn't until that moment that I looked at my mom and I saw the way that she looked at me, because he said it in a way, obviously, that made her feel uncomfortable, and it was in front of everybody else. And long story short, I understood that I was different. I understood something is like, my life is going to be different from everybody else's. Just based off that one moment, I was 6 years old, but I remember how much work he had to struggle to detangle this hair. And I was perceived and I was looked as if it was a problem. At the age of 16, 17, you know, every year we celebrate Black History Month, and I never really cared. I'm going to be honest. I never really cared about Black History Month. It was just like, I'm Dominican, I'm Latina, whatever. But it wasn't until I was 16, 17 years old that I bothered to pay attention to my teachers when they spoke. And I listened carefully, and I understood the power that one person can have if they use their voice, if they stand up firmly to what they believe, if they use their voice to inspire others like Martin Luther King did, like Malcolm X, like Rosa Parks, among so many. When I bothered to listen and pay attention, I felt like, well, if they did it, and they were able to be so impactful in the world, and they were able to inspire so many people, then I can do it too. Because I see that in my community, nobody really talks about us. The stereotype of what a Latina should be like is everybody that's of fair skin, straight hair, more European features. But what happens to the rest of us? There isn't a Latin country that doesn't have Black people. There isn't a Latin country that doesn't have people that look like myself. So why aren't we good enough? Why aren't we spoken about? Why don't they put us in novelas and soap operas? Why aren't we in the covers of magazines? Why when we look at the news, there's no one that looks like me? So are you saying that I'm not good enough? Are you saying that I am unattractive? Which, by the way, then I actually went to an audition, which I won't say what network. And in this audition, which, by the way, as Latinos, we know that we don't have that many options. It's either this one or the other, but you pick. You know what I'm saying. I went and I auditioned, and basically they told me that I wouldn't get the role, not based off my talent, but based off the fact that I didn't look Latina enough. And then that even made me more angry. And that really just made my blood just boil, because I was like, okay, so what are you saying? What does a Latina look like? We don't all look like Jennifer Lopez, and we don't all look like Sofia Vergara, which I love and admire them. Amen. But okay, what happens to the rest of us? What is up with this stereotype? We need to be the ones to break the stereotype, to break the barriers. And that's why I am so outspoken. Because when I was growing up, the only person that I had to look up to artistically was Celia Cruz. And after she died, I was like, well, then who else do I look up to? Like, you know, who else looks like me? And I felt like, well, then the little girls that are growing up now, who are they looking up to? It's somewhat unfair that they have to look outside of their culture. Yes, we have the Beyoncés, which I love and admire. We have the Nicki Minaj's. We have all these great celebrities. But what about within their own community? Why can't they look at themselves on TV and feel that maybe one day I can be like her? Why does she have to look somewhere else? So I just felt, well, look, some call me a role model, some may not. I don't know. I'm not perfect. I'm young. I'm still learning. I make mistakes. But I want to use my life to make a difference, to be impactful, and know that my life mattered. When I was born with a purpose. My life mattered, and I want to be part of history. I want other people, the next generation, to say, it was thanks to Amara la Negra and people like her and people like in this panel that I sat down and I saw them and I felt inspired to embrace my color, to embrace the texture of my hair, to be outspoken. So, you know, I get a lot of death threats. I get a lot of N-word letters, you know. I get all types of things. It's not all roses. It's not all pretty. Yes, I'm an activist. Yes, I'm on TV. Yes, I'm a celebrity, blah, 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 all that good stuff. But when I have these type of conversations, I'm not speaking like an artist. I'm speaking like an Afro-Latina. I'm speaking like a Black woman in America. I'm speaking como una negra in this world, not even in America. Because it doesn't matter what country you go to. For the most part, I personally haven't met a Black person who has never felt discriminated. Somewhere in your life, you have either heard it, you have felt it, you've heard the comments of, in my case, why are you hanging out with that Black girl? Oh, that's the best thing you could do. This is who you're dating. Or, you know, you have to better the race, like you said before. Or, oh, for being Black, you're really pretty. You have nice features. What the hell does that mean? I just feel that this is a generational curse that has passed on from one to the other to self-hate ourselves as if we're not good enough. And there's a part of me that feels great, you know, that we're finally breaking barriers and we're having this conversation. And there's this other part of me that feels like, why should I be happy? Why should I be so grateful when this is our human right, when this is something that should have already been happened? I shouldn't have to feel like, oh my God, I can't believe we're finally having a chance. We're finally having an opportunity. Why? Why should I feel so grateful when other races don't feel the same? Other races have always had it and they don't feel, oh my God, I'm so grateful. No. So there's a part of me that feels happy and there's a part of me that's still angry that we're still having this conversation. And to close this off, I mean, I'm very passionate. I can do this for days, okay? I was in the front line with that when the marches happened here in Miami. I went as, you know, I forgot about the whole celebrity thing. I went there as a regular person. Oye, me forget it. I'm putting my sneakers, I'm blocking the I-95, and I'm gonna tell the people, y'all got us messed up, okay? We're not gonna put up with it. And I feel that, most importantly, not only do I do this for myself, not only do I do this for other women, for other men like myself, I do it for my children. I don't have any kids. I don't have any brothers. I don't have any sisters. My mom immigrated to this country by herself. But I feel like if I don't use my voice, if I don't use my platform, if I don't use the blessing that God gave me, then what's gonna happen to my children? The day that I have children, my children will be Black. Know and believe that. My children will be as Black as I am if possible, okay? And I would hate to know that I have to be fearful that if my kids go out to the street, I have to be like, wait, where are my kids at? Where, call me, text me, and this, put out your phone. And obviously, as a Black woman, I'm gonna have to have that moment when I have that conversation with my kids and say, because you are Black, you will be treated differently. You have to learn what it is and how you have to live your life in this world because of the color of your skin. So with that being said, the only thing that I can do is use my platform, is use my voice. And I am doing every single thing in my hands, in my power, to continue to bring awareness, to continue to be part of these panels, to continue to inspire and motivate others to embrace their culture, to embrace their Afro-Latinidad. And like I said before, you know, I'm passionate, I'm young, I make mistakes, but I am more than honored and blessed to be able to share the screen with the rest of you guys. Thank you guys so much.
Gracias. Gracias for the greeting in the beginning. You know, the beauty of technology, my mute button would not unmute. But thank you. Estoy bien. I'm great. I'm psyched. Oh my God, you have just energized us all. What a wonderful kickoff. Keep doing what you're doing because your voice is powerful and we need that voice to really advance the agenda that we have for social injustice and all of the things that we all face. So, gracias, te queremos. And now, on to Cesar Francia, a healer at Decolonizing Wellness. And I know you have a lot to tell us, Cesar, so welcome.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, evening for me. I'm joining all of you from Cape Town, South Africa. Thank you to Tony. Thank you to Yvette. I feel like I'm in family. And thank you, Amara. How do you follow Amara? How did I get in this spot? But I'm going to try to do my best. I'm in South Africa because I woke up one day, quote unquote, successful lawyer at the age of 31, moved from Venezuela at the age of 15 and worked so hard to get to a place where I could make my family proud and make myself proud. But I found myself tired of every day going into the office and being underestimated, tired of proving my worth, tired of having to smile through microaggressions and through straight up aggression in an environment that is heavily male, heavily heterosexual, heavily cisgender, and heavily white. And so I decided that I wanted to embark on a healing journey. And I wanted to give myself the opportunity to empower myself through healing, through all the sacred technologies that are at our disposal to heal and to work on anti-Blackness in my body. How have we consumed white supremacy and how does it show up in our bodies? And these are questions that kept me up. And I decided to quit my job and come to South Africa to engage in indigenous traditions, to engage in practices that have been calling my name and calling my spirit for years. But because of the demonization of these practices, I haven't given myself the permission and the opportunity to really explore them. And so I'm here doing this work. I'm doing yoga teacher training, and through it, I understood and learned that my inclination towards yoga has roots in Africa, because in Egypt, in ancient Egypt, there were yogic-like poses inscripted in hieroglyphics that tell us that these practices are not just in India and in that side of the world, but also in our backyard, at the cradle of humanity where we all come from, Africa. And so I'm really healing in that way and understanding that healing is a form of resistance. If we are not in wellness, if we're not in alignment with our physical body, our emotional body, and our spiritual body, we won't be able to fight this fight. It's not sustainable. We wear out, our bodies tire, our hearts tire, our minds tire. So how do we refuel? How do we gather the energy to continue this fight? We go back to our ancestral practices. We go back to the healing modalities and the healing technologies that our ancestors used. Breath work is as ancient as breathing, right? And so we need to go back to our breath in order to reconnect with who we are. We are divine beings having a physical experience. And racism and white supremacy, they're only symptoms of our larger issue, which is we're not aligned, we're not connected. We're walking around life disembodied, going to our jobs from 9 to 7, 9 to 9, and then going to sleep. That didn't make sense to me. We have these beautiful sacred bodies that do incredible things, and we're bound to a desk in our computers. That can't be it. And that's what put me in this journey to really find out, how can we be self-sustaining? How can we break away from capitalism? Because it is a choice to participate in it. And our ancestors had a different way of existing. And I think that reconnecting with that is truly going to be the way to move forward and to actually heal. And that's not to say that public policy and legislation and law and fixing and defunding the police are not important and worthwhile pursuits. That's definitely important. But how about reaching inward and connecting ourselves to a universal intelligence so that we can think of ourselves as a humanity, as a collective, and not as black, white, straight, gay, etc. We can do this, and we have the tools at our disposal. And Decolonizing Wellness, it's a platform that I'm creating at the moment. I'm busy learning and exploring and feeling all these modalities in my body such that I can provide them free of charge for people to connect with themselves and so that we can heal. And so I'm open for questions afterward, but thank you so much for this space.
Wow, Cesar, that was so amazing. Sign me up for when you are back in the States for this Decolonizing Wellness. I think we can all use some of it. So many things. I was taking copious notes, you know, reaching inward, connecting to our universal intelligence. Sometimes we're moving so fast, Cesar, that we forget to breathe, which is what you're telling us. So how timely. And good luck to you, and please stay safe out in South Africa. Gracias. And now we move to Dayana Blanco, who's an attorney. Welcome, Dayana.
Thank you so much. The first I want to say that is I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for the opportunity. I'm sorry for my English. I'm going to do my best, okay? Well, talking about Afro-Latinidad, I have to say that I didn't know I was an Afro-Latina until I moved to LA to study a master's degree in law. And this is because our identity is always in transformation. Our identity is always a real discovering for us. And we go to this process, at least in my experience, in 4 steps. First for me was a process like being ignorant about who I am and reject who I am. For that reason, it's so important. Keep fighting and teaching our children about being proud of being Afro-Latinos, of being Black people. The second step we have to endure is confrontation, because we have to fight with other people about how they see you. You understand that you are Black because other people discriminate you, other people violent with you. Then that is a really difficult process we have to go through. Then the third step is appropriation. We have to appropriate our identity in a conceptual way. What's the meaning of being Black? What's the meaning of being Afro-Latino? In a legal way, in an academic way, in a personal way. And the last thing we have to do, and it's the thing we're still doing till the end of our life, is being proud and being a fighter, being defensive. We have to defend our identity. And about, going to this process teach me that we have to have some tools to be successful in the world as Afro-Latino, as a Black woman, in my case, as a Black lesbian, Afro-Latin lesbian, and all that things. And we have to have education. For that reason, it's so important our participation in the construction of public policies. It's really important for us to participate in the construction of public policy. We have to have the support of our families. But the problem with this necessity is that our families have been victims of a process of discrimination because of the immigration, because of the unemployment, because of hunger, and we have to keep fighting against that demons. At the same time, we fight against racial discrimination. And we also need institutions that knows about the meaning of racism. We need officials that knows about what's the meaning of racism, what's the meaning of institutional racism, what's the meaning of structural racism, what's the meaning of racial capitalism. Because if we don't get that, if we don't get institutions that really knows that racism exists, if we don't get the government to know that racism really exists, we're still keeping this conversation among us, and other person that doesn't suffer the consequence that doesn't suffer discrimination won't understand. Never. I think more than this, we need to keep building communities, and building community not just with Afro-Latin people. We have to build community with an intersectional approach, because we are Afro-Latinos and we are also queer Afro-Latinos people, and the oppression that women suffer when they are Afro-Latinos is different than the oppression of the Afro-Latino men suffer in this path. We also need to bring together organizations, you know, organizations of Afro-Latinos, organizations of trans people, LGBT people. We also need to know that racism is a transnational problem. It's not just a problem we have to suffer in the US. I also suffer racism in Colombia, in Peru, in Europe. It's a transnational problem. Then we have to talk about this problem, that a problem that is common to every nation. For that reason, I would like to share with you that I'm gonna be working in the construction of a transnational red of people, activists, and attorneys to work against racism and justicia racial. We are gonna be focusing in Brazil, Colombia, and the US, and the idea, the main objective of this network is bring together people that has been working against racism, has been working for racial justice, and learn about our experience and do legal mobilization for racial justice, for justicia racial en estos tres países, and that our experience keep together to keep fighting. Thank you so much.
Incredible. And Dayana, I do want to tell you that I was reading through the chat and I felt the same way. Never apologize for your accent. Own
Okay.
it. A lot of people are saying it's beautiful. Tina, Victor, Glisette, myself, and there's so many others that are saying that you speak beautifully. Ese acento es nuestro orgullo. And tú eres un orgullo, not only nationally, but internationally. Keep on with that wonderful work. I do agree with you. You know, participation in public policy, our voices are just so important. The word intersectional jumped out at me. I have a colleague at AARP, Nicolai Corte, and he leads our LGBT audience strategy, and he talks to us about looking at things through an intersectional lens. So I'm so happy that you brought it up, because that's where we find unity, and that's where we move forward and we become a progressive nation. So gracias, Dayana, for all the wonderful things that you're leading for Afro-Latinos and all Latinos all around the world, I would say. And now on to un ejemplo. I want to say a little bit more than what I have here. Sid Wilson ha sido un ejemplo for the Latino community, for all that he represents, for his organization, Sid. I've been able to participate in many, many beautiful things with Sid, but he is a true advocate, a true friend with a lot of passion, making so many wonderful things happen. And Sid Wilson is the president and CEO of the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, or as we call it, ACER. Bienvenido, Sid.
¿Cómo está, Yvette? Thank you so much. It's great to be here. Hopefully everyone can see me. I can't see myself, so I hope that that my camera is working okay. But can everyone hear me okay? Yvette, can everyone hear me okay? All right, good, great. Well, first I'm gonna say, buenas tardes, mi gente. It's such a great privilege to be here. Thank you, Yvette, not only for your leadership at AARP, but also for being a champion for Afro-Latinas. You know, you're being out in the public and talking about this issue is really helping us to address the challenges that we have within our Afro-Latino community, but also why we need to keep this dialogue going. So thank you, Yvette. And I do need to give a big thank you to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation and to Tony Tijerino. Tony has been a staunch champion, ally, hermano in this movement, and someone who is a courageous leader in making sure that that justice is taking place within our community and within not only for Latinos but for Afro-Latinos, and has you know, just been a great champion and hermano in this movement. You know, we have friends, we have strong supporters, and then we have hermanos. You know, where this is who they are, because this is part of the family. And so I do really thank Tony for his brotherly leadership on this topic, and also really to Dayana. I love what you said, Yvette, to Dayana, not to apologize for her accent. When I talk about the challenges of being the visitor effect, you know, one of the challenges is always trying to fit in. And you know, maybe because we have an accent, she has a Spanish accent. I have an English accent when I speak in Spanish, and then we're always trying to figure out how we fit in. And my message is, don't worry about trying to fit in. Focus on standing out. You know, let our accent be our identity, and let the community acculturate to us versus us having to assimilate to them. I'll repeat that again. That the community must acculturate to us, not us assimilating to them. So Dayana, keep that accent going. We love it. And when I speak en mi español, que también no es tan perfecto, pero eso quien yo soy. Así que, you know, this is who I am. And this is going to be talking about what I call the visitor effect. Why we often feel like visitors and not communities. And let me first start with the preface that, you know, for those of us that go to church, we have our home church, and then we'll often go to a visitor church sometimes. And then usually when you go to your visitor church, you know, the pastor will say, are there any visitors here that are visiting us? And then you raise your hand, and then you stand up, you say your name, your home church, and where you're from. And then usually everyone just comes and hugs you and embraces you and welcomes you. And it's a great feeling when you feel that way. You know, but what happens when you're a visitor to, let's say, a club, an organization, a group gathering, or even a family where you're welcomed, you're embraced, they offer you dinner, all these things. But when the point comes to say, well, I want to be a member. I want to be a member of the board of directors. I want to be a member of this club. I want to be a member of this group. And then it says, well, we're really for visitors, and you were really a visitor. That's the visitor effect that happens with Afro-Latinos very often, where sometimes we are welcomed as guests, but we're not always welcomed as family. And you know, and many of us have had these experiences where it's like, well, Sid, I like you, I can hang out with you, I can do this, just don't marry my daughter. You know, or I like you, Sid, this is great, collaborate, but this board of directors is not really for you. I'm not sure if you're really a fit. And what that's really saying is that, well, you know, it could be for a lot of reasons. You know, outside of our Black and Latino communities, it could be because of race. But internally, it could also be because of the issue of, are you too Latino to be Black? Are you too Black to be Latino? And based on that, you know, do we then treat you as a visitor? When I was named as the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Hispanic Association on Corporate Responsibility, I'm proud that I made history. I'm the first Afro-Latino to be the CEO of any national Hispanic organization in the country. I'm now proud that I'm not alone anymore, because now 2 years ago, Marco Davis became the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Congressional Hispanic Caucus Institute, another great hermano. So now there's two of us. But the question is, why aren't there more? And, you know, in corporate America, there's been only one Afro-Latino CEO, Julio Portalatin. He was the CEO for Mercer, now vice chairman for Marsh McLennan. And yet, there are millions of Afro-Latinos throughout corporate America, throughout the country, and we are almost absent at the higher ends, not only within corporate America, but when we look at even our nonprofits, you know, the general nonprofits, or the Latino and African American nonprofits, and say, where are the Afro-Latinos there? And surprisingly, it's almost absent. I know that on almost every nonprofit outside of my Dominican nonprofits that I get involved with, but the other nonprofits, I'm often the only Afro-Latino on the board of directors. And then the question is why are we not thinking about diversity and inclusion to make sure that Afro-Latinos are present? And when we're left out, but we're invited to the reception, we're invited to the conferences, we're invited to this, but when it comes to being at the table, they're like, well, you're not really a member. And that's why I call this the visitor effect. It's the feeling that we're welcome. They says, well, of course, I have a lot of Afro-Latino friends. I love to bring them and embrace them. I says, yes, but will you make me a member of the board of directors, a member of the club, a member of the family, if this is a case of being involved in a family? Because all of us know that we've heard, you know, there's always that talk of, ay, estoy preocupado que tú estás cenando con un moreno y eso, ¿qué va a hacer con la familia, todo esto? And I'm like, you know, these are some of the inherent racisms that take place even within our own community. And these are things that must be discussed. And these are the kinds of discussions that we have. So my recommendation, and I share this with companies, is that number one, don't treat us like visitors. You know, embrace us as members, full members of our Latino community, our Black community, because in addition to my being the CEO for USAID, I'm a Gold Life member of the NAACP. I am a strong supporter of the National Urban League, and I'm a big champion of Black Lives Matters, because Black Lives Matters. and Black Lives Matters, including the Black lives of our Latinos. This year has been a year that it's been important for us to speak up, not only because of what happened with George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, but also because when I saw what happened to Omar Jimenez from CNN, live on TV, an Afro-Colombiano, and he's doing only broadcasting, doing his job, and the police say, well, we need to take you into custody. And they didn't take any other news reporter under custody except for Omar Jimenez. Does anybody believe that he would have been taken into custody on live TV on CNN if he were not Black? And, you know, this is an issue that we must continue to address. You know, I have relationships with all the major networks, and I talk about the fact that how are you portraying us? You know, the way you portray us on TV is how people build these stereotypes. And, you know, we need to be portrayed in these ones. So that way we're the main star again, and not the visitor, because, you know, because the feeling of being a visitor, it's nice when you're a visitor and it's a truly a visiting experience. But if it's one where we want to be a part of the board, part of the family, part of the experience, and the response is, well, it's better that you stay as a visitor, you know, that's a suppressive response. And those are some things that we need to respond. So I just want to say how, you know, how thankful I am that we're having this topic, that we must end this visitor effect that happens towards Afro-Latinos by the white Caucasian community and by our own community too, so that everyone understands that even within the Latino community, Black Lives Matters, including the lives of Black Latinos like me and everybody else that's here. And this is why this movement must continue and continue loudly so we can march, lock arms, and stand together strongly so that we can say, "Pa'lante mi gente." So with that, again, thank you to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation. Thank you to Tony Tijerino. Thank you, Yvette. Thank you all, everybody. And, you know, and pa'lante si se puede, and we shall overcome.
Sid, gracias. There's always so much to learn from you. Messages loud and clear, this feeling of visitor. But one thing that I do want to reiterate, and you said so much, the community must acculturate to us, not us assimilating to them. There is so much power in that statement and in so many things that you said. Sid, eres un campeón. Gracias.
Gracias a ti.
De nada, Sid. Un placer. And now we continue with Maria Salmeron, a Hispanic Heritage Foundation National Youth Awardee for Education in 2017. She is currently studying economics and government law at Lafayette College. Bienvenida, Maria.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that introduction, Yvette. Hi, everyone. Like Yvette just said, my name is Maria Salmeron. I'm a rising senior at Lafayette College studying econ and gov law because I have the aspiration to go into educational policy, which I'm going to talk a little bit later. But I'm currently Zooming from my dorm in Eastern PA. I actually reside in Silver Spring, Maryland, but I was born and raised in Tegucigalpa, Honduras, so I'm proudly Garifuna. And I actually just celebrated my 10th year anniversary in August. So this is the perfect segue to just like, kind of just like navigate with everyone here, what I've like reflected on, like the powerful insights I've acquired through the past 10 years. So I thought I'd begin like this Charla with like telling you why that is as we continue to move forward to navigating solutions. A couple of months ago at the Charla on like how Latinos can be better allies to the Black community, I spoke about the emotional burden of grieving Black lives on one side, while simultaneously trying to debunk the misconceptions of the Black Lives Matter movement on the other side as an Afro-Latina. And on top of that, consistently existing in a predominantly white space, since that's been like my academic situation for the past couple of years. Now you see, like I also like spoke about like the erasure and invalidation of being an Afro-Latinx woman, but I'm kind of shifting gears today and kind of want to create this parallel between like erasure and visibility and then validation versus invalidation, which is what I'm trying to move forward to and like what I'm trying to like take away from this, as I would say. Now, if you talk to me and you get to know me, you know that being Afro-Latina is something that more or less is going to come up within a minute. It's like not going to take that long for a formal rite of passage to be like me picking up a phone call from my mom and being like, hola mami, and then just like blabbing again, like in Spanish, like just going from there on. But basically like, I'm like chuckling while I was saying that because it's just like the little things that I've like gained in this like self-awareness journey in which I've just like looked inward, picked up on those little things, also like unlearn my grievances, but also like just consistently like trying to celebrate me, see me, value me, and just hear me out through the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the reason why I'm saying that and emphasizing that today is because being Afro-Latina, I don't think I ever got, I think that's something I took up on myself, and that's something that my mom ingrained in me from the beginning, and it's not something that was just like cultivated from the get-go, I'd say. I've been sitting here on this call and just listening to everyone, and I was just sitting here and I was just like, okay, like when was the first time I realized I was Black in certain spaces? Now looking back in schooling in Honduras, where I would touch one of my friends, actually classmate might be the better word, and she would just clean herself. And I would keep on touching her because I was just like, why is she just cleaning herself? And I was like, what, like 5 years old? Like I didn't really understand what was going on, but I would go back and like talk to her mom about it, and she would just be like, what is going on? And she would obviously be more mad than I was, because at that point I couldn't conceptualize that anti-Blackness was already fostered in like this 5-year-old, like that young, particularly around when this rhetoric would exist that like somebody who was indigenous was white, but that's not really how it works, and that's another conversation for a whole another day. And that would happen, you know, that's like some of like one of like the many like experiences I've had in Honduras. And then I moved to the United States, and it was, I I guess, in the more microaggressive manner that, again, like my Blackness was coming up from like, why are you wearing your hair like that? I like your hair better when it's straight, and just microaggressive comments like that in the passing. So looking back at this and identifying solutions, like I guess like the thing that I want to reinforce is like just that self-empowerment that comes from being self-aware and aware of others. I feel like right now, given the current racial revolution that we're in, and just like everything in this push for accountability, it's just like leading from empathy in the sense that you are able to understand yourself, but you're also able to understand others in the sense that, in a way that understanding others does not involve putting people in boxes. And I think that when we're talking about Afro-Latinidad, that's often what happens. People can conceptualize the fact that intersectionality exists, the fact that we talk about the big identities, but also like diversity manifests itself in so many different ways that I feel like often when we're not able to do that ourselves from the very beginning, diversity can be seen as threatening. And that's why intersectionality can also be seen as threatening, because how dare somebody have so many multilateral identities that they can work around of. And, I think that's why self-awareness is so important. And Cesar talked about this, about like healing, and like how healing is an imperative process in achieving this as well. Because as I heal, I become more self-aware, and I acknowledge what is about me that I'm manifesting and projecting on others, to the point that maybe it's not that I actually don't like that, but it's just I don't understand. So I'm stigmatizing it to the point that I understand. And God forbid Afro-Latina actually exists, because you can be both, you have to be one. And unfortunately, that's the society that we live on right now. But I think something that has made me optimistic about the past couple of months is I think we're now starting to expand our horizon into really acknowledging what other different identities are about. So I started off this talk talking about how I'm studying economics and government and law because I want to go into educational policy. And one of my aspirations into educational policy is just reflecting back and just how school has been a microcosm of like people experience, at least people, and like by that I mean like experiencing their Blackness, and like as Sid said, like also like feeling like this visitor effect is constantly there, but not knowing how to put it into words. So that's a term that I'm actually gonna like start using a lot now. But feeling like this visitor effect. So I think moving forward, like one of my personal solutions that I'm gonna uphold myself to is just like advocating for educational policy with students, particularly students of color, and particularly Afro-Latinos individuals who come after me, to feel seen and valued and heard in a way, in academic spaces, in a way that is not having to feel constrained to one box, but rather represented, like Amara said at the beginning, and just in a way that their invalidation of their own experiences are not getting in the way of like fostering their learning. Because how can you be comfortable in a space where you don't even feel like you can be your own self in the first place? So that's my little spiel. But thank you so much for having me, HHF. I love this family so much and happy to be here.
Maria, how wonderful. What a visionary and a future leader you will be for us. So many beautiful messages, powerful self-empowerment, self-awareness. I mean, these are things that are so important and also kind of tie back to healing, as Cesar mentioned. But thank you so much for enlightening us and for telling us a little bit about your journey. Gracias. And now we move to our last speaker, someone who's very knowledgeable, filled with data, filled with knowledge and vision, Yadira Santana-Dowling. She is the Associate Director of Strategy at República Havas and author of the 4-Day Creative Brief. Bienvenida, Yadira.
Gracias, Yvette. Gracias por la oportunidad. First, I would like to start by telling you all a little bit about myself. I was born in the Dominican Republic. For the first decade of my life, my only identifier was gender, because 99% of the people around me were Dominican. We did get creative with our descriptors of our skin tones. So in my Dominican passport, my color is India. Then we moved to the US. I became Hispanic and Dominican in New York City. I think New York City is one of the few places that you can live your life without having to identify yourself beyond Hispanicity and country of origin. Now that changed when I went to school. I went to college in Ohio, and that's where I discovered I was Black. One summer, I received a Latina magazine issue, and Zoe Saldana was on the cover. And one of the writers wrote in, finally, a Black Latina on the cover. And I said, what? A Black Latina on the cover? She's Dominican. She's about my shade. Our hair texture is very similar. If she's Black, I'm Black. And that was the intellectual realization for me. Socially, my social development was more intuitive because my most natural associations were with African-American students. Our experiences were most similar. Our moms had very similar sayings. Our religion, the way we practice and went to church is very similar. So I've been asked many times if I feel any less Latina because I identify also as Black and vice versa. And I said, absolutely not. I feel 100% Black, 100% Latina. My race and my ethnicity live harmoniously. I have a multi-ethnic family and I feel richer for it. We love one another. The spices of our life, the cooking is much more richer because we are mixing things here. And my children don't know the difference. They are proud of who they are and they are growing up in this multi-ethnic home. So I wanted to also bring recommendations of things that we can do. And my recommendations are things that I have done myself. My first recommendation, if you have questions about your own identity, is to go back and learn more about our history. Slave trade started in Latin America way before it started in the United States. And countries like Mexico and Brazil welcome more slaves than the United States ever did. So think critically when you go back and learn your history. You know, colonization looked a little different under Spaniard rule than under British rule. The church didn't prohibit interracial marriages. Therefore, that's why you see so many of us looking different, and we come from so many different mixes in Latin America versus here. There was no 1/8 of a drop of blood identifier in our countries. So when it came time to fight for our independence, it actually benefited the Spaniards that we associate more with them than as an other, which is why till this day, we struggle with who are we and who do we identify with, regardless of the way that we look. And my second recommendation is, you know, as you're learning about yourself and you're digging deep, how do you see Afro descent? If you find out, if you do your DNA and you are, you know, part African, do you reject any part of who you are? We know that Latinos come from Africa, Spain, and the indigenous people. Do you have a certain bias to one side or another? If you want to study your biases, I recommend the Harvard Bias Test. You can Google it and it's free. You take a test and you realize, where are your hangups? Where is the work to be done? I say we've been drawing lines in the sand based on our hues, based on apparent race, which is in the eye of the beholder anyway, based on people's immigration experiences. So, you know, let's go ahead and work to debunk those things, and it starts with us. Now, my third recommendation is, what actions can we take? You share what you learn about yourself. You share in our circles. You have those conversations with family members. Let's get rid of the stereotypes, the microaggressions, those words that are being said in our presence that don't belong there, that are not right. And then you engage civically. After you elevate the conversation, take your online activism offline as an ally. You can become a poll worker. You can increase cultural awareness trainings in the spaces where you are, where you work, the church you go to, the nonprofit organizations that you are involved in. You can also be a friendly neighbor. Acknowledge and befriend people that are different than you. Me having a multi-ethnic household, I can tell you that that is extremely important, because my husband tells me sometimes he goes places and he feels invisible, that people do not greet him, you know, and those are experiences that are different based on the way that you look. And at the end of the day, we all want the same things. We want freedom to pursue our happiness. What does that mean? Safety for our children, a good school for our children, job opportunity, and to know that somebody else cares about your well-being. And that is why Black Lives Matter is important. As you move forward, you think about the present and the future we want to collectively create for our children. They are all our children and our responsibility. It doesn't matter what they look like, where they come from, their immigration status. We adults are the ones responsible for the communities that we create for them, the officials we elect to govern our communities, having that neighborhood eye to watch over all of our children, even if they're not part of your immediate family. So I say, let's not divorce ourselves from the experience of another. Si todos, at the end of the day, somos primos. Thank you.
Mi prima, sí, es verdad, todos somos primos. We were all related somehow, and all this diversity of thought and this discussion unites and weaves us together. Yadira, thank you so much for all of that insight. I love what you said about going back and really learning our history. I think it really starts there, and a lot of the history that we need to learn is not in our storybooks. And so we have to dig a little bit deeper to really find that. Pero muchísimas gracias. That was just very, very insightful and impactful. I would really like to thank all of our speakers for these impactful and real presentations. I mean, I have felt everything that you have said. I have learned and taken little nuggets of so much, like I'm sure all of our participants have. I'd like to start our Q&A. You know, our attendees have been asking some important questions throughout the charla, and we want our speakers to answer some of them. If you'd like to submit a question, please don't forget about the Q&A window, and we'll try to get through as many as we can. I think we are a little behind, so I'll try to move through them a little bit quickly. I have one for Amara. Amara, you discussed, hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hey.
You discussed a lot about the things that you're going through, some of the things that you're doing right now. Hearing all of these discussions and being so prominent in the community, especially with Black Lives Matter, what are some proactive approaches that you recommend for some of us to take to really, move this agenda forward?
I mean, I guess the obvious is to vote, right? Number one would say vote. I mean, even though, okay, this is going to sound terrible, what I'm about to say, judgment-free zone. This is only about my opinion. But okay, sometimes I be feeling como, okay, does my vote really matter? I've questioned myself. Hey, listen, I'm not going to I know that my job is to come here and tell you, we the people, la, la, la. No, I'm going to tell you how I feel. Oye, lo que te voy a decir. I feel sometimes like, does my vote really matter? Is y'all really going to pay attention to what I got to say? But then I realized, yes, it does. My vote does matter. Our vote does matter. And that's the first thing I think that we have to do, right? One is to vote. If you don't like what's going on in your community, you don't like what's happening in society, whatever your choice may be, politics, yo no me meto en eso. Whatever your decision is, be my guest. But I do understand that that's one, too. I personally feel for everybody that feels like, yo quiero hacer algo, I want to do something, but I don't know what to do. I may not have 2 million followers or whatever. I say use your social media platform. Instead of taking all your little booty pictures and all the little things that you do, take advantage of your platform también to tell the people that are following you and they're looking up to you, you know what, this is happening in my community. We need to come together. You need to stop doing this. One, if you hear somebody else talking in a matter that they're not supposed to, about a race, about features, about hair texture, about color, say something. Because if you don't say anything, then you're part of the problem as well. Just because you don't say something doesn't mean like, oh, I didn't say it, but you didn't say it, you didn't do anything to stop it either. So I believe that there's many things and many ways, and most definitely, educate yourself. Go do your research. Go learn about yourself. Go learn about your history. Find out who you really are. Where do you come from? Your ancestors. Whose blood runs through your veins? Do your research. And once you do, then you'll realize and you'll see how all of a sudden you'll become empowered. I don't know. That's what happened to me.
Gracias, Amara. You're so right. Nuestras voces, our power is with the vote. Thank you so much for that. I have a question for whoever wants to answer it from Adriana Padilla. And the question is, how do you feel about the terms mestizo and trigueño?
if I may, I think we have to, part of going back to history is knowing why these classifications were made in the first place. They were made to divide us such that we could be conquered. And so, yes, let's find our identity, but also let's realize that these classifications are meant to continue separating us from each other and saying, oh, I'm a little lighter. That's playing into colorism. It's playing into these notions that we're different, and we're not. We're united. We're united in many ways than one. We're united in universal consciousness. We're united in blood. We're children of rape. You know, we're children of colonization. We're children of these processes that precede us, but we can change it. We can utilize the healing technologies that exist to heal ourselves such that we can move forward.
Well, nobody asked me, but let me tell you. Yo no sé. I'm black. Yeah, that's what it is. Para mí. Everybody has the right to decide if you want to be. I understand personally. I understand at the end of the day, we are united. We're all humans. We're all Latino. We're all human beings. I get that part. But personally, I don't even like to be called of color. No, I'm not of color. I am not the rainbow. I am black, as you can see, crispy. My melanin is on fleek. So yes. A mí me gusta que me digan negra. No me llamen ni morenita, ni que no sé qué, vainita. No, yo soy negra, and that's what it is. That's me. I don't know about the rest of y'all.
I love it. Me encanta, Amara, me encanta. I have another question. I hope I'm pronouncing the name correctly. From Errol de Jesus. His question is, I'm black, and her question is, I'm sorry. I'm black, and my husband is Mexican. Our son is Afro-Mexicano. How do I encourage my husband to be socially conscious and care about solidarity, intersectionality? I feel like so many of our conversations are one-sided. This is for any panelist.
I can take this one, being that I am too raising children in multi-ethnic household. And you start by your common interest that you have, which is your son. You both have the love for his well-being, and he is seen as a black man in America. You know, before he opens his mouth and he can say, oh, I'm this and I'm that, I'm certain mix. That's why I said that race is in the eye of the beholder, because the beholder, be it, you know, a police officer, be it his classmates, will catalog him as what he looks like. And because of that, you can use that to start the conversation with your husband as to how you guys can work together to create the future that you want for your son. A community that it is accepting, loving, and caring towards your son, just like it would be for any other child in America.
This is Sid. Let me just add real quickly to that is that, other things is defined as commonalities. The fact that that you're black and your husband's is Mexican American, I would share your son about the history of Veracruz. We know that Veracruz is a city in Mexico that has the largest Afro descendancy history, and so sometimes those understanding those histories allows your son to be able to feel more not only just proud of who he is in terms of just his history and knowledge, but also just recognizing how his history is comparable to the histories that many of us have had, coming from mixed families, from those of us that are African descent, some that are of African and Spanish descent, and those are some things that I think that can be helpful in there. But most importantly, this is most important, is that regardless of whether you're 100% Afro-Latino, where you come from the case both my parents came from the Dominican Republic, or if you're from mixed family household, you should always be proud of yourself, and you should never have to feel uncomfortable explaining who you are. And that's why I always stress to don't worry about trying to fit in, just focus on standing out, because people remember for that. And as I said before, don't worry about having to assimilate to other cultures. Let them acculturate to you.
Espérate, que yo voy a meter la cuchara aquí también. What's her name? The girl who asked the question.
Girl who asked the question. Give me a second. Let me find her. Errol is her name.
Errol, listen to what I'm going to tell you right now. Pay attention to me closely. And I know this question wasn't for me, but okay, listen. I'm going to take advantage of this panel. First of all, if your man, meaning your husband, your baby daddy, whatever the case may be, and this goes for the ones that don't have one either yet. One, when you decide to be in a relationship with someone that's from a different ethnicity, a different race, it is your duty to also do your research on that person's history and their background. That goes vice versa. Because if you're having a conversation with someone and they're consistently just leaning towards their side, then that's something that we need to fix. We both need to educate each other on our culture and our history. If we're going to be dating, porque vamos a comenzar por ahí. The first thing happens when you're dating. Listen, in my culture is like this. This is what's the history of my people. Tell me about yours. I think that it has to be fair for everyone to understand each other's background. And then once you have a child, then you guys have an understanding. It kind of is a little sucky for the child at that moment to have to be in that process, because you never want to pick between your mother and your father. But I think that from the beginning, for those that may have those questions or may be thinking, from the beginning, that when you're dating someone, I think that communication is super important. Yeah, cambio fuera, I'm out.
Gracias, Amara. Very, very well stated. Estoy empoderada, I'm empowered, I'm psyched, I want to go on and do more. I really, really want to thank our wonderful speakers. What inspiration. Thank you for being bold and brave and sharing your stories, your journeys, no matter where you may be in the United States and South Africa. Thank you so much. What an honor it has been for me. As I mentioned in the beginning, this was my dream panel to have been here today and led this charla. Thank you so much to my wonderful AARP team. I see Veronica Bedon and in the comments. Thank you so much for helping and for the vision on this panel as well. Thank you so much to the Hispanic Heritage Foundation team and our fearless leader, Tony Tijerino, for your vision, your support, and your love of your Latino culture. This has just been a joy for me. Thank you to all of you for attending, to take time. I know that sometimes there's Zoom and Teams fatigue, but that you took time to be with us today. Gracias de todo corazón. The Hispanic Heritage Foundation team will also be following up with the resources mentioned throughout the charla, as well as invitations to upcoming charlas. As Tony said, this is not the first one, it won't be the last. There are many. Please stay tuned to their communication. Muchísimas gracias. Cuídense mucho, be safe, and take good care. Adiós.